My name is Russ Diabo. I'm a member of the Mohawk Nation at Ganawage, which is located by Montreal in Quebec, my community. But the Mohawk Nation is part of a larger confederacy, the Haudenosaunee or Iroquois Confederacy of 6 nations. The situation in Canada is that we've had colonization from the French and the British since the 1600s and the 1700s. Of course, with the conquest of the French, the British have taken over, the assertion of their sovereignty through the doctrine of discovery. And so they assume that they have the lands, coast to coast in Canada. And in 1876, they passed a federal law, a national law called the Indian Act, and they created a reserve system, Indian reserves, which are small pieces of land, and the traditional territories were opened up to European settlement and occupation. And that's been an issue across Canada for decades now, is basically Indigenous peoples wanting to see their stolen lands, territories, and resources returned to them, at least a portion. And that's what's behind most of the land conflicts in Canada, is when Indigenous land defenders or water protectors object to a project or activity. They're confronted when they leave the reserves. The Indian reserves are confronted with usually court injunctions, followed by police action. And in 1990, we saw in my own home community, in the Mohawk community of Ganawage, we saw the Canadian Army being brought in over a land conflict, which is over 230 years old. And so mostly land defenders have been criminalized from British Columbia through to Nova Scotia for defending and protecting their land rights. And basically, as we say in Canada, there's 3 parts to Canadian colonialism. There's dispossession, which creates dependency. And then when we fight against the dependency and the poverty we've been forced into under the Indian Act, there's oppression, which comes in the form of the courts and the police. And right now, as I speak, we have the Wet'suwet'en people opposing a natural gas pipeline, the CGL pipeline in what's now British Columbia. We have the Secwepemc people who have been opposing a Trans Mountain pipeline, which Canada bought. So they're opposing a pipeline that's owned by Canada. There's been arrests in both cases. In the Wet'suwet'en case, their territory was invaded and they were forcibly removed in February of this year. The Wet'suwet'en, the Secwepemc have seen arrests as well recently for opposing putting the pipeline under one of their salmon-bearing rivers. Right now in Ontario, what's now called Ontario, the province, there's Haudenosaunee land defenders at what they call 1492 Land Back Lane. They're surrounded by police over lands that were stolen from them, that they've occupied, that was slated to be a housing development. And they're opposing that housing development because it's in what they call a red zone, where 90% of the lands promised to them were taken, and there's few lands left surrounding their community. So that's happening right now. There's been arrests there, rubber bullets shot at them. And also in Nova Scotia, there's Mi'kmaq fishermen going out on the water. Over 20 years ago, the Supreme Court of Canada ruled that they have a treaty right to earn a moderate livelihood from their fishery. And for over 20 years, the federal government didn't do anything about it. So this year, the Mi'kmaq started going out and doing their own moderate livelihood treaty fishery for lobster. And in response, they've been attacked by mobs of white fishermen from the commercial fishing industry. And the police stood by and did nothing. They've only made a few arrests now, but they let mobs attack the Micmac at their wharves. And in fact, on the water, they were chased by, $1 million commercial fishing boats when the Micmac are using maybe a $10,000 boat. So, and also, I guess the last thing I'd say is there's been a major national inquiry into murdered and missing Indigenous women, because so many Indigenous women have been murdered and gone missing in Canada. And they released a report over a year ago. And one of their conclusions is Canada is committing genocide because its policies are designed to break up Indigenous families, and particularly women and girls. Mm-hmm. And Canada has yet to respond to the recommendations of that report. So that's kind of an overview of where we're at in Canada. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you.